An alien girl met her with teeth and terror until 3 human words stopped the blood. When she heard, "I see you," something older than fear looked back and began to change. Twin moons floated low over the black glass dunes when the escape pod fell like a spark from a dying fire. The elf woman watched its descent from a knife-edged ridge, her cloak pressed flat by the high desert wind. Her name was Leora, and the dragons at her heels, Ember, Copper and Furious and Blue, Sapphire and Bright, breathed the air as if tasting a story they already knew. The pod struck hard. Sand flashed white. A hush followed, the kind that makes a heart count too loudly. Leora moved, sliding down the slope with the silent confidence of someone who had walked battlefields and bakeries in the same hour. Ember padded beside her, claws whispering on glass. Blue glided ahead, drawing a small glowing circle above the wreck. A hiss, the hatch blew. Heat rolled out. A young human woman crawled onto the sand, coughing through a split visor. She wrestled the seal loose with shaking fingers and gulped the night. She was pale under the ash, with steady eyes despite the shock, a mechanic's focus trapped in a storm. Leora knelt with practiced calm. "Do not stand yet. You have fallen far." The woman blinked at the dragons, then at Leora's pointed ears and the faint light running the seams of her armor. I'm Laura Bennett," she managed. "Cargo tech. Not military." Her gaze caught Blue's luminous eyes. Fear pressed in, then cracked curiosity leaked through. "Are those yours?" "They are my children," Leora said, "and they do not bite without cause." A rustle sounded to their left, soft, wrong, close. Ember's head snapped toward a tumble of fractured hull. Blue's throat glimmered. Leora's blade cleared its clasp with a whisper. "Someone else rode your fire down." The thing that crawled from the shadow was slight no taller than Laura's shoulder, skin the translucent gray of moonlit water, eyes too large for its narrow face. Filaments drifted around its head like hair in slow current, and twin rows of small, glassy teeth flashed in the light. It looked at the dragons, at Laura, at Leora, and lunged. It moved with desperate speed. Laura threw her hands up, too slow. The creature's jaws closed on her glove, teeth punching through fabric into skin. Laura cried out. Ember surged forward, flame rising. "Hold," Leora said, voice flat steel. Ember froze, flame swallowed, heat rolling harmlessly over her cloak. Blue hovered, trembling with stored light. The creature clung, shaking with a fear too bright to be cunning. It wasn't hunting. It was drowning. Laura clenched her jaw and kept still. "It's scared," she said, breath ragged. "So am I." Blood welled along the bite. Leora crouched until her eyes were level with the attackers. She didn't bare teeth. She didn't grow larger. She made herself small and certain, the way she had with fire-shocked dragonlings. "Little one," Leora said, speaking the wide-band syllables her people used for first meetings. "Let go. You are seen." The creature's eyes flicked to her. The filaments stilled. Laura's breath hitched. She felt the hot sting of teeth and the colder ache behind them, the ache of someone whose world had broken and kept breaking until biting was the last language left. Laura swallowed. She met those wide, frightened eyes and whispered, steady as she could, "I see you." The words landed as if they had weight. The creature blinked twice. Heat softened in its gaze. The jaw unclenched. It drew back, not fleeing, not attacking, simply shaking as if the night wind had finally found its bones. Leora slipped a narrow bandage from her belt and wrapped Laura's hand with quick care. "Good," she said softly, a praise meant for both of them. You gave a name to the space between fear and harm. Blue drifted closer, letting a small hum fill the air, a dragon lullaby, simple and old. The creature's filaments lifted, tasting the sound. It made a clicking note in reply, then another, building a tiny ladder of syllables. "Not language, I know," Laura murmured. "Not yet," Leora said. "But meaning is already here." A shadow crossed the stars. Leora looked up. Far overhead, lights moved in a precise triangle house Vasic patrol pattern. The wreck had sung to the wrong ears. "We must leave," she said, standing in one smooth motion. "Laura Bennett, can you walk?" "I can," Laura said, surprised to find it true. But what about the child comes, Leora said. She extended a hand toward the creature, palm open, fingers still. With us, if it wishes, or behind us, if it must. The creature considered the hand. Then it touched 2 fingers to Leora's palm with ceremony far older than fear, and stepped into the triangle of warmth formed by woman and dragons. They moved east, footprints soft and deliberate across glass. Ember took rear guard, great head turning to watch the sky. Blue circled low, painting the sand with faint rings of light. Lavra walked between dragons, cradling her bandaged hand in the fragile quiet it had purchased. Why did it bite? Lavra asked after a time. Pain bites when words fail, Leora said. Starving, hunted, burned by falling. It found teeth before it found any welcome. Lavra glanced down at the small figure pacing beside her. Can we keep calling it it? You may name what you choose to protect, Leora said. It will answer to truth before it answers to sound. Lavra thought of the way the filaments had stilled, the way the eyes had softened. Then Sora, she said, for the way it looked at the sky. The creature made the clicking note again, almost pleased. Sora, then. Ridge lamps bloomed ahead low, golden lights along terraces carved from obsidian. The ridge farms lifted from the dunes like islands. Leora led them under windcloth canopies that smelled of warm leaves and spice. Children watched from doorways, faces luminous, more curious than afraid. No one pointed. No one shouted. Here, wonder was ordinary and carefully kept. In the communal hall, Elder Mara rose from a long table dusted with flour. Silver threaded her dark hair. Wisdom threaded her steady gaze. Smoke on your hem again, Mara said, brushing ash from Leora's cloak. And new footsteps at your side. This is Lavra Bennett, Leora said, and Sora, newly named. They fell through Vasik's carger and did not die. We may yet keep that true. Mara's eyes softened when she saw the bandage. Sit, she said. We have water and bread. And time, if you do not squander it by refusing kindness. Blue perched on the table's edge, small talons careful. Ember lay across the doorway like a bronze threshold. Sora stood at the corner of the bench, toes flexing against the floor, gaze darting between faces and flames. Lavra drank, then set the cup down and studied Leora in the flicker. Who are you, really? Leora's mouth tilted. A farmer who remembers war. A mother to 2 dragons. A daughter who learned to bake after learning to burn. Mara's hand rested briefly on Leora's shoulder, a benediction and a warning both. Vasik heard the fall, the elder said. Their skiffs hunt edges first. We do not have long. Laura straightened. I can help with sensors, jammers, anything electrical. Mara approved. Good. The ovens need new coils, too. A bell chimed twice soft metal on metal, the settlement's way of whispering danger. Ember's head rose. Blue's glow sharpened. Leora's eyes went to the ceiling as if she could read the sky through beams and clay. Skiff, she said. 1, no escort. Clever to come as a rescuer. She stood and offered her hand to Sora again. You may hide or you may stand. Both are brave. Sora looked at Lavra. Lavra held out her bandaged hand, palm up, and said again, steady as prayer, I see you. Sora stepped closer, then closer still, until its shoulder touched Laura's knee. The filaments settled like hair after a storm. Leora smiled, small and fierce. Then we stand. She moved into the courtyard with Ember to her left and Blue to her right. The wind brought the dry scent of heat sinks and lies. A black skiff cleared the far dune, lights low, loudspeakers quiet polite theft in the shape of a vehicle. Mara dimmed the hall lamps. Children vanished like careful ghosts. Laura found the jammer switch with shaking fingers and waited for Leora's cue. Breath tucked into her ribs like a bird in a hand. The skiff hovered. A voice carried, mild and professional. Unregistered incident detected. Corporate safety assistance dispatched. Please present survivors for evaluation. Leora lifted her chin. Her voice reached the skiff without strain. We present none to thieves. Ma'am, the voice said. Indulgent now. There seems to be a misunderstanding. There is, Leora said. You have mistaken this place for yours. Blue's hum rose. A thread of light pulled taut. Ember's chest glowed like a forge waking. Leora's smile was almost tender. "Lavra," she said without turning. "When I step forward, make the skiff see only emptiness." Laura's thumb found the switch. Sora's small hand touched her calf, steadying her more than any machine could. Leora stepped. The night seemed to hold its breath. "Now," she said. Lavra pressed the switch. The skiff's lights stuttered. Its sensors blinked to blank. For one heartbeat, the courtyard was only wind and waiting. Then the first bolt of plasma tore the dark. The plasma bolt hissed through the air, carving a line of fire across the courtyard wall. Ember's roar answered, shaking dust from the rafters. Blue darted upward, wings slicing through darkness like twin blades of light. Leora moved with inhuman precision, one step, a turn, a raised arm, and her rifle sang. The beam struck the skiff's left stabilizer, sending sparks into the night. The craft wobbled, engines flaring. Inside the hull, Laura ducked behind a pillar, her trembling hand still gripping the jammer switch. "They saw us!" she cried. Leora's voice carried calm through chaos. "No, they guessed. Keep the jammer cycling. Do not let them map the ridge." Sora pressed against Laura's leg, eyes glowing faintly. The small alien's filaments lifted, shimmering with static. Laura could feel the hum, like electricity through water. "What are you doing?" she whispered. Sora didn't answer with words, just released a pulse of energy that rippled through the air. The courtyard lights flickered, and the skiff sensors blinked out entirely. Outside, confusion seized the attackers. Visual feed down. One shouted overcomes. "Target lost." Leora's smile was sharp. "Good. Then let's remind them what they're hunting." She raised her left hand and whistled a short, piercing tone. Ember leapt into the air, wings igniting with heat. The dragon's flame cut a swath through the smoke, painting the skiff in orange fire. The hull buckled. Blue followed, striking with bursts of cold light that cracked the craft's armor like glass. The skiff lurched, engines shrieking. Leora ran forward, vaulting over debris. She fired once more into the control array. The explosion rocked the ridge, bright enough to turn night to dawn for a heartbeat. Then it was over. The skiff collapsed in on itself, metal cooling to dull gray. Ember landed heavily, smoke curling from his scales. Blue fluttered beside him, chirping soft triumph. Lavra emerged from the hall, heart pounding. "They're dead?" Leora shook her head, scanning the wreck. "Not yet. One signal remains." She approached the ruin with weapon drawn. The hatch hissed open, and a wounded man in black armor stumbled out, clutching his side. He looked up at her, face pale beneath his cracked visor. "Dalinar," he rasped. "You should have burned with the old wars." Leora's expression didn't change. "And you should have learned mercy before selling it." He lifted a trembling hand toward his belt, reaching for the detonator clip there. Before Leora could move, a blur of gray and light darted past her Sora. The small alien slammed into the man's arm with surprising force, knocking the detonator free. It clattered to the ground. Ember's tail came down like judgment, crushing it. The man's eyes widened. "You keep those things?" Leora's tone was quiet, dangerous. "They are not things." The soldier tried to speak again, but the light faded from his eyes. Silence settled. Leora looked down at Sora. "You saved us." The alien tilted its head, filaments pulsing faintly. Lavra knelt beside it, voice soft. "She's not what they said she was. Neither are you." Sora blinked, uncertain. Leora saw the faintest curve of a smile, fragile, like dawn over shattered glass. They buried the wreck under dunes before sunrise. The ridge farm stirred awake slowly, life returning to the rhythm of quiet survival. Lavra sat outside the hall, her bitten hand bandaged again, watching the sky grow lighter. Sora sat beside her, mimicking her posture almost perfectly. "You're copying me," Lavra said, smiling a little. Sora tilted her head. "Learning," she said, the word broken but clear. Laura's breath caught. "You can talk?" Sora hesitated, searching for words. Small words. Safe words. "You said, 'I see you.' I see you too." Laura's throat tightened. That's perfect." Leora joined them, carrying a tray of warm bread. "You taught her language faster than I expected." I didn't teach, Lavra said. I just listened. That is teaching, Leora replied, offering her a piece of bread. My mother said listening is the first act of mercy. Lavra took a bite. The bread was coarse, sweet, comforting. What now? Now, Leora said, sitting beside her. We prepare. Vasek will send more. This gift was a test, not an ending. Then we'll be ready, Lavra said. Leora studied her. You speak like a soldier. I fix things, Lavra replied quietly. Ships, machines, sometimes people. Guess that makes me stubborn, not brave. Leora's eyes softened. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's standing where fear wants you to kneel. Sora looked between them, processing the rhythm of the words. Brave, she echoed. Leora touched her head gently. Yes, Sora, brave. That night, the settlement was still. The dragons slept near the courtyard, tails curled together like spirals of molten light. Leora sat by a low fire, her rifle across her knees, eyes turned to the stars. Lavra joined her quietly. You never rest, do you? When the stars sleep, Leora said, so will I. Lavra looked at the sky, the twin moons casting silver light over her face. You ever wonder if they watch us back? Always, Leora said softly. The universe remembers those who look at it with kindness. She paused, then turned to Lara. Your people forgot that once. Maybe that's why you fell. Lavra smiled sadly. Maybe, but maybe we can remember again with help. Leora considered her words, then nodded. Perhaps this time, the humans will stay to rebuild instead of conquer. Maybe this time, Lavra said. Glancing at Sora's sleeping form, we build something worth protecting. Leora followed her gaze. We will, but the stars won't give peace easily. Then we take it, Lavra said. Together, the faintest smile curved Leora's lips. You sound like a Thalner already. The wind stirred, carrying the smell of bread and fire. Far beyond the ridge, in the darkness beyond sight, engines stirred again, quiet, deliberate, patient. The war wasn't over. Morning broke on the ridge with a pale, trembling light. The air smelled of wet sand and smoke, the scent that followed survival. Leora stood at the edge of the glass dunes, her hair pulled back, eyes scanning the horizon as if reading invisible runes written by the wind. Behind her, the small settlement was stirring. Farmers emerged to check the irrigation lines. Children fetched water, and the dragons Amber and Blue watched everything from their perch atop the stone wall. Lavra sat by the forge, repairing what remained of the jammer system with Sora's help. The young alien mimicked her motions, pressing tools into Laura's hand at every gesture, her movements uncertain but eager. Leora watched them for a while, the corner of her mouth softening. She hadn't seen laughter in this place since before the wars, but peace never came without cost. A whisper reached her ears, distant, rhythmic, unnatural. Not the wind, not the dunes. A pulse. She closed her eyes and felt the vibration through the soles of her boots. Drones, she murmured. 2, maybe 3. Ember's wings twitched in response, scales glimmering like molten copper. Blue trilled softly and dove into the clouds. Lavra heard her voice from across the courtyard. They're back? Not yet, Leora said, turning. They're searching the old relay grounds, but soon. Lavra wiped sweat from her brow. Then we don't have much time. Sora tilted her head, the filaments along her skull flickering faintly. Bad people come, she said, her voice small but certain. Leora crouched beside her. You feel them? Sora nodded, touching the ground. Buzzing. Far but coming closer. Leora met Laura's gaze. She's more than we thought. Lavra looked at Sora, her heart tightening. She's sensing their frequency. Yes, Leora said. Her kind may have been born from the same science that ruined ours. The same science? Leora rose, her expression distant. Before the fall of the Thalner, we tried to create peacekeepers, beings who could hear conflict before it began, who could sense rage as sound. They were called the Sarai. Lavra froze. You're saying she's one of them? Or what's left of them? Leora looked down at the child. The Sarai were not born. They were shaped half empathy, half weapon. We lost them when the Vasek raided our laboratories and sold the survivors to their war factories. Lavra felt her stomach twist. So she wasn't just scared when she bit me. She was remembering, Leora said quietly. She was trained to attack what frightened her. Sora's voice trembled. Bad? Leora knelt and took her hand gently. No, you were made to survive. That is not bad. Sora blinked, tears forming in her translucent eyes. I see you. Leora's heart tightened at the phrase. And I see you, little one. By midday, Blue returned, wings crackling with static. She circled low, landed hard, and chirped an urgent rhythm. Leora's face darkened. Vasic command ship, she said, orbiting low. They're scanning for Sarai signatures. Lavra stood. They're looking for her. Leora nodded. They must not find her. If they learn one still lives, they'll come in force. We can hide her, Lavra said quickly. Underground, under the storage vaults. They'll scan through stone, Leora interrupted. The only way to hide her is to make the signal vanish. Lavra frowned. What do you mean? Leora turned toward the tower in the distance, its light pulsing faintly. We silenced the beacons. All of them. That's suicide, Lavra said. Without those, you can't call for help. Help will not arrive in time, Leora said. But silence might save her. Sora stood between them, eyes darting. I can stop noise, she said suddenly. Inside my head. Make quiet. Leora looked at her in surprise. You can dampen the signal? Sora nodded. Hurt a little, but I can. Lavra knelt. Hey, no one's asking you to hurt yourself. Sora shook her head. Safe if I do. Bad people no find. Leora considered, torn between logic and instinct. The Sarai child's powers might protect them, but the strain could break her. Before she could decide, the sound of engines tore through the silence, heavy, low, and close. The Vasic gunships had arrived. Too late, Lavra whispered. The first barrage struck the dunes, sending sand and flame high into the air. Ember bellowed and rose, fire cascading from his mouth. Blue shot upward, lightning sparking along her wings. Inside, Leora shouted. Everyone inside. They ran for the hall as the sky filled with fire. The ridge trembled. Plasma bolts rained down, scorching the farmland. Leora slammed the heavy doors shut, sealing them with a locking rune. The hall shuddered under the impact. We can't hold this, Lavra said. We need to move. Where? Leora demanded. They'll burn every exit. A high-pitched hum cut through their shouting. Sora stood in the center of the hall, eyes glowing white. The filaments on her head extended like a halo of light. What's she doing? Lavra cried. Leora's voice dropped to a whisper. Becoming what she was made to be. The air vibrated. The sound of engines outside faltered, then stopped. The gunship's lights flickered. The dragons froze mid-roar, tilting their heads as the very sound of the battlefield was swallowed whole. Sora trembled, her small frame glowing brighter. Sora, that's enough, Leora shouted. You'll burn yourself out. Sora's voice echoed strangely layered, ancient, not entirely her own. No, I make quiet. The light flared once more and everything went still. Silence. The Vasic ships hung motionless in the air, engines dead. Then, one by one, they began to fall, crashing into the dunes like broken birds. The explosions came without sound like light shattering in glass. When it ended, Sora collapsed. Lavra ran to her, catching the small body before it hit the floor. Sora! Hey, look at me. The alien's eyes flickered open. Quiet now, she whispered. Leora knelt beside them, pressing her hand to Sora's forehead. Yes, little one. The stars will not hear us now. Sora gave a faint smile, fragile as dawn. Good. You see me. Then her eyes closed. Leora felt the faint pulse fade beneath her fingers. No. Lavra breathed. No. Leora looked at the still form in her arms, grief and fury warring across her face. Ember lowered his head beside her, a deep rumble rising from his chest. She silenced the sky, Leora whispered, and gave us breath. Outside, the sun broke through the smoke, painting the shattered ridge in gold. But peace came wrapped in sorrow. That night, Leora stood beneath the twin moons, Sora's body wrapped in white cloth before the tower. Blue circled above, singing softly. She will not be forgotten, Lavra said beside her. No, Leora agreed. The quiet she gave us will echo longer than war ever could. They stood together in silence until the stars brightened. But in the far horizon, a small spark flickered, too precise to be natural. A Vasic distress beacon. Leora's eyes narrowed. They'll come again. Laura's voice hardened. Then we'll be ready. Leora looked at her, the human who once fell from the sky and learned to stand beside dragons. You already are. The morning after the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful hollow. Every sound seemed hesitant to return, as if the air itself remembered what had been taken from it. The dunes were still smoking where the Vasic gunships had fallen. Their hulls lay half-buried, twisted metal glinting beneath the pale sun. Ember prowled the wreckage, nostrils flaring, growling softly whenever he caught the scent of scorched iron. Blue hovered above him, wings whispering through the air like sighs. At the edge of the ridge, Leora knelt beside the small mound where Sora rested, wrapped in white cloth that shimmered faintly with Thalanar runes. Her hands, calloused by battle and softened by bread, trembled slightly as she pressed a stone into the sand. Lara stood a few steps back, silent, holding the tiny device she had found near Sora's hand, a crystalline fragment, faintly pulsing with blue light. Leora, she said softly, this was glowing when I picked it up. I think it's still alive. Leora turned her head, eyes narrowing. What is it? Lavra passed the shard to her. Looks like a core fragment organic tech. Maybe from her species? Leora held it up to the light. Inside the translucent crystal, threads of energy pulsed slowly, like veins carrying light instead of blood. Her breath caught. No, she whispered. This isn't Vasic design. It's Thalanar. Lara frowned. You mean your people built this? Leora nodded slowly. We built the Sarai from living circuits machines that could feel, learn, and sing to the stars. Each carried a shard like this, a memory seed. When the body dies, the shard sleeps until called. Until called? Lavra repeated. Liara's voice dropped to a whisper. If this seed still pulses, then Sora is not gone. They returned to the hall, clearing a space on the long table where bread and tools shared equal importance. Leora placed the shard in a bowl of sand mixed with starlight ash. Ember and Blue crouched nearby, watching with unblinking eyes. Lavra sat opposite her, connecting a power cell and a frequency tuner she had salvaged from the wreckage. If it's alive, maybe we can wake it, she said. Leora nodded. Gently, she gave the galaxy silence. We owe her calm. They worked together in near darkness. The first spark came faintly, a ripple of sound, more feeling than noise. A child's breath, maybe. Or a memory pretending to be one. Then came the hum. The air shimmered. The shard floated, light gathering within. And then, from its core, a faint projection flickered Sora's face, eyes luminous, filaments drifting as though underwater. Lavra gasped. Sora? The image tilted its head. Loud again, she said softly, voice echoing in layered tones. I made quiet, but quiet too big. Leora's eyes filled with something between awe and grief. You survived inside the seed. Sora's projection blinked slowly. Small me sleeps. Big me wakes. Big you? Lavra asked. What does that mean? The light flickered, and a low vibration ran through the floor. The dragon stirred uneasily. Ember's scales flared, and Blue gave a nervous trill. Leora's gaze snapped to the walls. She's linked to the forge. The forge? Lavra echoed. The Thalanar buried dragon forges beneath every major ridge, Leora explained quickly. Living factories that could grow wings, weapons, even new dragons, if fed with soul light. They were shut down after the wars. But if Sora's consciousness connected, the floor shuddered violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then she's waking something older than both of us? Leora finished grimly. Outside, the dune split open. A column of light shot skyward from the sands beyond the ridge, forming a spiral of molten glass and shimmering energy. The ground shook so violently the crops tore from the soil. The dragon screeched, wings flaring. From beneath the light, an enormous shape, rose metal, bone, and crystal, fused into something alive. A dragon, but not like Ember or Blue. This one was colossal, ancient. its body carved from the same black glass as the desert itself. Its eyes glowed with the same blue fire as Sora's shard. Lavra stumbled back, staring. "Tell me that's normal." Liara didn't move. "That's no beast," she said, voice almost reverent. "That's Phyrion, the first dragon. The Forge's guardian." The ground split again. The projection of Sora pulsed brighter. "He sleeps long. I called him. He keeps safe." Lavra gaped at the massive creature now turning its head toward them. "Sora, you woke him?" "Bad people come," Sora said simply. "Big quiet makes space for protector." Liara looked to the sky. "She's right. Look, beyond the horizon, faint but unmistakable, streaks of light were descending Vasic reinforcements. The command fleet had arrived. Liara took a steadying breath. "Then we stand again." She turned to Ember and Blue. "Guard the hall. Protect the elders." Ember rumbled, wings spreading. Blue chirped, defiant and ready. Lavra stepped beside Liara, rifle slung, eyes fierce. "What about us?" "We lead Phyrion," Liara said, her hand brushing the shard. "He will follow Sora's will." "And Sora's will is ours now." The desert roared as Phyrion took flight. His wings tore gales through the dunes, scattering debris like dust. Liara and Lara climbed the ridge to the tower's edge, wind howling around them. Above, Vasic gunships broke atmosphere in tight formation. "Once they see that thing," Lara shouted, "they'll panic." "Then we remind them who the Thalanar were," Liara said. The first wave of enemy craft opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked downward, but they never landed. Phyrion's wings unfurled into shields of energy, absorbing the impact and returning it tenfold. The sky turned white, then gold, then red. The Vasic fleet reeled. Inside the hall, the villagers watched in awe as dragons living and ancient filled the heavens again. Ember and Blue joined their elder kin, spiraling around Phyrion like smaller suns. The air burned with light, fire, and hope. But in the middle of glory, Sora's voice faltered through the shard. "Too much noise. Hard to hold." Liara clutched it tighter. "Stay with us, Sora. Hold until the sky clears." "I see you," the voice whispered faintly. "And I see them too. They don't understand." The shard dimmed. Phyrion roared one last time, and a wave of energy rippled across the desert, scattering the remaining ships like leaves in a storm. The fleet broke, retreating beyond the atmosphere. Silence followed. Not the hollow kind. The soft kind, the kind that comes when the world exhales after holding its breath. Liara looked down at the shard in her hand. The light had faded, but warmth still pulsed faintly within. "She's sleeping again," Liara said. Lavra exhaled shakily. "Then, maybe she gets to rest this time." Liara nodded slowly. "She bought us peace." For now, they watched the dragons circle in the golden dawn, living myths reborn, guardians of a world once broken. That night, Liara placed Sora's shard in a carved box, setting it beside the hearth. She whispered a quiet promise in the old tongue her mother had taught her. "If the stars fall silent again, we will remember who first taught them to listen." Lavra sat beside her, leaning back against the wall. "So," she murmured, "does this count as a victory?" Liara smiled faintly. "No, it's a beginning." Outside, Ember and Blue slept beside the Forge's faintly glowing mouth. Phyrion's colossal form rested beneath the dunes once more, wings folded like mountains. And somewhere within the sleeping shard, a voice whispered into the quiet, "I see you." The desert slept again. For the first time in a generation, no engines burned across the horizon, no corporate banners hung over the dunes. Only wind and dragons and the slow breath of a world relearning calm. Liara stood on the ridge at dawn, cloak rippling in the breeze. The first light of the sun stretched over the dunes, glinting off the black glass where once the war machines had fallen. Ember prowled lazily at her side, while Blue fluttered above, scattering warm light across her shadow. Down below, humans and elves worked together among the terraces, repairing irrigation lines, rebuilding ovens, tending to the fields. And somewhere in the heart of the hall, a shard of living light pulsed faintly, beating in rhythm with the wind. The rebirth of Sora. The shard rested on the same table where Lavra and Liara had last worked. Its glow was dim but steady, like a heartbeat in sleep. Laura sat across from it, chin propped on a hand. "It's been 3 days," she said softly. "She hasn't said a word." "She will," Leora said, slicing through a block of bread dough. Sora never learns silence without reason. When she returns, it will be because the quiet has something new to say. Laura smiled faintly. "You always talk like that, like you're narrating the universe." Leora raised an eyebrow. "It listens when I do." Blue chirped from her perch by the window, tail flicking lazily. Ember let out a huff of smoke that made the flour on the table jump. Laura looked at the shard again. "You think she'll be the same?" Leora shook her head slowly. "Nothing that wakes twice remains unchanged." That night, the hall was quiet. The stars above the ridge glittered like the shards of something long broken, but carefully mended. Leora sat beside the hearth, mending a tear in her cloak. The shard sat between her and Laura, glowing softly. Ember slept in the doorway, tail twitching. Blue lay curled in Laura's lap, her light dimmed to a gentle hum. Then the shard flickered. Once, twice. Leora's head lifted. "Sora?" A faint voice echoed, tiny, fragile, but unmistakably hers. "Still see you," Laura gasped. "She's back!" The shard rose an inch from the table, glowing brighter. Threads of light unfurled, weaving the outline of a small figure. Not as ghostly as before, more solid, more alive. Sora's projection looked around the hall, eyes bright and curious. "You fixed me." Laura smiled through tears. "No, Sora, you fixed us." The projection tilted her head. Different. Big me sleep. Small me wake. Small me like it here." Leora stood slowly, stepping closer. "Then stay. You are safe among those who see you." Sora's light wavered as if shy. "Not afraid anymore. Dragons sing now. They say, world's soft again." Blue gave a happy trill, confirming it. Ember lifted his head and rumbled in quiet agreement. Laura wiped her eyes. "You're amazing, Sora. You know that?" Sora reached out, her shimmering hand hovering just above Laura's. "You said words." "I see you. They stay." Leora looked between them. The human, the alien child, the dragons curled by the fire. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the simplest words change entire galaxies." The world that followed weeks passed. The ridge farms flourished again. Humans and Thalaner worked side by side, rebuilding the ruined towers and purifying the forge that had once given birth to dragons. Phyrian, the first dragon, remained beneath the dunes, sleeping a god content to rest until called by need. Trade ships began to arrive, not from Vasek, but from independent colonies that had seen the broadcast of Sora's silence across the sectors. Word spread of a world that had refused conquest and found peace in understanding. And at the heart of it all, Leora and Laura led quietly, one with the wisdom of fire, the other with the patience of repair. Sora, now reborn in her glowing form, wandered the settlement freely, followed by curious children and curious dragons alike. Her laughter had become the new sound of morning. One evening, as the suns dipped low and painted the world in copper and rose, Leora found Laura on the ridge, watching the light fade. "Almost looks peaceful," Laura said. "It is," Leora replied. "And peace is the loudest rebellion there is." Laura smiled. "Think Sora will remember everything she was?" "She will remember what she needs to," Leora said, "and forget what she must. That is how all life begins again." They stood in silence, listening to the sound of Blue's wings and the laughter from the hall. For the first time in years, Leora allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the stars had forgiven them. Epilogue: The sky that smiled back. Sora's voice drifted through the courtyard as she played near the forge. "Leora! Lavra! Look!" They turned to see her holding a small orb of light above her head. It shimmered, humming softly, and then projected a fleeting image of stars moving across black space, an ancient Thalaner constellation. Lavra gasped. "Is that—" Leora nodded. "The old map. The one we lost when Vasek burned our archives." Sora smiled, light dancing across her translucent face. "Not lost, just hiding. I found it in the quiet." Leora's eyes softened. "You found our past. And our future," Sora said. "It's big," but I see you both in it." The words struck deeper than either of them expected. Leora reached out, resting her hand over Sora's light. Then let it shine. Together, they watched as the orb floated skyward, joining the star's new light among the old. For the first time since the war, the night sky looked whole again. If this story touched your heart and sparked your imagination, don't stop here. Subscribe now and join our galaxy of human-alien adventures, new HFY stories every week.